Back in the days, I thought I have a very good memory, but truth to be told, no one has a good memory. And when I had to remember the stuff, I have to grind it or force it. But forcing the memory is like putting them into a short-term memory, which isn't good for your test. And just like my friends, I use flashcard, but that also didn't help too. Then I realized that there were steps to improving your memory. And I started paying more attention to the how of actually memorizing the content rather than what to memorize. And I was able to do the impossible, which is memorize every content, every word, and then I was able to improve my scores. Why do we forget things? Our brain works like a storage. The space is limited. You can have all the stuff in the storage, you have to get rid of some that you don't need. Well, the brain does the same thing. It's trying to protect you from the overloading information. Simply put, if you don't repeat the information, reuse the information to make your brain to think that it matters, it's not going to find its place in the storage. Then, the information will be lost. So, when I was teaching the student the SAT test, I made all my students remember 100 new vocabularies every single day from a vocabulary book. Well, I found out that most of my students forgot 60 of the vocabulary the next day, and within 2 days, 85 of the words were gone from their memory. A result very similar to the one conducted by Hermann Ebbinghaus. Back in the days, I thought I have a very good memory, but truth to be told, no one has a good memory. And when I had to remember the stuff, I have to grind it or force it. But forcing the memory is like putting them into a short-term memory, which isn't good for your test. And just like my friends, I use flashcard, but that also didn't help too. Then I realized that there were steps to improving your memory. And I started paying more attention to the how of actually memorizing the content rather than what to memorize. And I was able to do the impossible, which is memorize every content, every word, and then I was able to improve my scores. So I use this technique called space memorization with a little bit of twist. Essentially, if you want to make something into a long-term memory, you have to do the following. Repeat, take a rest, repeat, skip a day, repeat, skip a week, repeat again after 1 or 2 months. So you're constantly bombarding yourself with information over and over again, and you're telling your brain that something is really important, and therefore it deserves a space in your storage. So, how did I tailor this technique into an SAT test? Well, through many years of teaching, I was able to come up with a method, and then I was very lucky to get it patented. This pedagogy is called RWS, which stands for Reading, Writing, and Speaking. A customized test prep program that is designed to help students to remember the contents of the test and improve their scores. I have taught and mentored thousands of students on the SAT test, and some of my students' RW score went from low 400 to high 700. Well, I was able to do this because a lot of my students have this amazing memory threshold due to this method. So I'm going to walk you through this unique memory boosting RWS program and help you see the method behind the magic. First step is to take the reading test, and after you finish the reading test, your time will be recorded to track your reading speed. Well, why is this important? Because a lot of the students spend about 5 minutes or more per passage, and on the actual test, they realize that they run out of time. To prevent you from running out of time on an actual test, it is very important to track your reading speed. Also, this is a great way to figure out which passage you're struggling with the most. Next step is to solve the reading problem. Separating the reading time from the passage solving time is very important because it will help you understand where and how much the timing is off by. In addition, there's an ample explanation for all the questions for the wrong answer or the right answer, so it will guide you to a review note for all the correct or incorrect answers. The third step is to take the writing test. So you may say, what's the difference, right? You take the reading test and then the writing test. Well, we designed and made the tests, right? So what we want to do is we want to help students not only experience a lot of practice, but also experience growth. So we use the same reading comprehension passage and turn it into a writing test. Rereading the passage will allow you to better engage with the story, which is the first step in creating and improving your memory. As mentioned earlier, repetition is key for your long-term memory. The fourth step is to reread the passage for the third time and clicking on any word that you didn't know. And once you click all the words that you didn't know, the next step, which is the fifth step, is to write down definition, synonym, antonym, and what word you use instead. By actively writing it down, it is commanding your brain that something is really important. Also, Learning synonym and antonym under the same category will give you the ability to know how to use the word in the right context and help you retain better memory. The sixth step is to create a story using the words. Now, the average SAT words that students do not know per passage is around 10 to 20, and you have 5 passages per test, so that means 50 to 100 words that you have to remember perfectly. Wow, that's a lot of words to remember. Putting the word into the story in the order in which they appear will help you better remember the words by thinking about the story that you have just created. This will take some effort, but trust me, writing your own story will help you create a long-term memory. What's more is that the SAT test is all about critical thinking, and the single best way to improve your critical thinking is learn how to write. There's no difference between writing and thinking. The last step, the seventh step, is to speak. Trust me, you're more likely to remember the words if you speak them out loud. The University of Waterloo presented 4 methods of learning written information: silent reading, listening to other people's voices, listening to your own reading recordings, and reading them aloud in real time. In the study of 95 participants, it was found out that reading the materials out loud was the most productive way for ones to retain the memory. I taught SAT for 10 years, and I taught both old and the new test. And probably there were thousands of students who I taught. I only came across less than 10 people who had photographic memory or more than 150 IQ. So that means that you and I, probably most of you who are watching, have not a great memory retention or not a really high IQ. But I do believe one thing, which is I think you can build memory from the scratch. But it is utmost important to know that you have to know how to build your memory. You can't just expect some words to be in your head after you just read them. You have to do certain things to make sure that these things find this place in your storage, which is in your brain. So please, just don't memorize. Just don't take the test. Do something about it. Do a writing, for instance. Try to write and use it often. Try to take a rest and come back and do it again. Do something different to help you make sure that you can remember the words better. Make sure that you can improve your score in this long marathon of SAT game. And yes, RWS is the great way to improve your score. Thank you.